My name is Irina Sokolova. I am 39 years old, and 11 days ago, I sold the company I built from a rented desk and a second-hand laptop for $11.8 million. Sokolova Care Logistics was never glamorous. We did not design apps or sell luxury products. We coordinated nurses, aides, medication schedules, discharge plans, and emergency coverage for families who were terrified to bring someone home from the hospital and realized they did not know what to do next. I spent 12 years building a business around the simple idea that no one should be left alone when life becomes too heavy to carry. That was the part my own family never understood. The night the deal closed, my husband Pavel sat across from me at our kitchen table, watching the champagne go flat between us. He did not look excited. He looked careful, the way he looked when a hospital budget had a hidden problem no one else wanted to name. Then he said, "Before you tell them the truth, tell them it fell through." I stared at him, like he had asked me to betray my own blood. He said, "Not forever, just long enough to see who calls you when they think you have nothing left to give." So I did it. I texted my mother and told her the sale had collapsed, that I was scared, embarrassed, and not sure what would happen next. 4 days later, she listed my childhood bedroom online for $76 a night. 6 days later, my sister Marina uninvited me from her wedding. My father, Victor, simply stopped returning my calls. But what happened on day 11, when I wired $37,000 to each of them, is the reason I am telling this story. Because they did not just reveal how little they loved me, they revealed the exact price they thought I was worth. Please subscribe to support the channel. I bet your phone battery is at 38% right now, right? If that's true, type 1. If not, type 2. Let's see whether I got it right. Alright, enough talking. Let's begin the story. The thing about being useful for too long is that people stop seeing effort. They only see availability. In my family, I had become something between a daughter, a clerk, and an emergency number taped to the refrigerator. When something broke, expired, confused them, frightened them, or required more than 3 phone calls, my mother did not wonder who might help. She reached for me. For 12 years, I handled what Galina called small things. Small things like disputing a $9,400 hospital bill after my father's shoulder surgery. Small things like renewing their homeowner's insurance after my mother ignored 3 notices because the envelope looked like advertising. Small things like calling the county office when their property tax assessment doubled by mistake. Small things like finding a Russian-speaking physical therapist for my aunt, arranging rides to cardiology appointments, and talking Marina through every contract she was too overwhelmed to read. Nobody called it labor. They called it family. My mother had a certain way of texting that made every request sound like a natural extension of breathing. "Irina, can you check this form?" "Irina, the clinic is saying something about authorization." "Irina, Marina's venue needs proof of insurance." "Irina, your father misplaced the Medicare card again." There was never a question mark at the end. That was what I noticed later. A question mark would have implied I had a choice. Marina's messages were softer, decorated with emojis and panic. She would send me screenshots of floral estimates, seating charts, invoices, menu changes, and then write, "You're just better at this stuff than I am." For years, I mistook that sentence for affection. I thought being needed meant being valued. I thought competence was a kind of love language. If I could fix enough things, maybe one day someone would look up from the crisis and see me. Pavel saw it before I did. The night after I told my mother the sale had fallen through, he found me at the kitchen counter with my phone in my hand, waiting for it to ring. It did not. No call came from Galina asking if I was scared. No message from Irina saying she was sorry. No voicemail from my father telling me to come over for tea, the way Russian fathers do when they do not know how to say love directly. Instead, at 8:17 the next morning, my mother texted, "Does this mean you can't deal with Marina's caterer today?" I read it 3 times, standing barefoot on the cold kitchen tile. The company I had spent 12 years building had supposedly collapsed overnight, and my mother's first concern was whether the wedding menu would still be confirmed before noon. That was when something small inside me stopped defending her. I did not answer right away. For almost 10 minutes, I stood there with my thumb hovering over the screen, feeling the old reflex pull at me. Apologize for being inconvenient. Reassure her. Fix the caterer. Make sure Marina did not have to feel the weight of anything practical on the way to her perfect wedding. Then Pavel came into the kitchen, still in his work shirt, his tie loosened at the neck. He took one look at my face and did not ask what happened. He only reached for the phone. I handed it to him. He read the message once, then again. His expression did not change, but something in his eyes went hard and quiet. "Do you have a pen?" he asked. I thought he was going to help me draft a reply. Instead, he pulled a sheet of printer paper from the drawer beside the coffee machine and sat down at the kitchen table. The same table where we had signed birthday cards, filled out school forms, folded laundry, eaten late dinners over hospital scheduling spreadsheets. He drew a box at the top of the page and wrote my mother's name inside it. Galina Sokolova, CEO. I almost laughed because it looked absurd. Then he drew 3 lines beneath it. On the left, he wrote my name. Irina Crisis Operations. In the middle, he wrote Marina's. Marina Public Image. On the right, my father's. Victor Message Forwarding. I stared at the paper. Pavel did not explain too quickly. That was one of the reasons he was good with numbers and people. He let the evidence stand long enough for me to stop arguing with it. Your mother does not ask Marina to fix insurance forms, he said. She asks Marina to look good at church events, post pictures, remember birthdays, make the family seem warm. She does not ask your father to make decisions. She asks him to soften hers. And she does not call you for connection, Irina. She calls you for resolution. I wanted to tell him he was being unfair. I wanted to defend them with old sentences I had polished for years. They're immigrants. They had hard lives. Mom worries differently. Dad was never good on the phone. Marina is just overwhelmed. But each excuse landed on that piece of paper and collapsed. The chart was too clean. Every holiday, every emergency, every favor, every silence had a place inside it. My mother was not choosing Marina over me. She was assigning us different functions. Marina was the daughter people saw. I was the daughter who kept the machinery from breaking. For the first time, I understood that I had not been unloved by accident. I had been managed. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm and checked my phone with the kind of dread that feels childish until it turns out to be accurate. There was no missed call from my mother, no message from my father. Marina had sent a photo of 2 napkin colors at midnight with the words, "Which one feels more elegant?" I did not answer. For the first time in years, I let a request sit there without rushing to prove I was still useful. Ad 10:42 Nina Kulikova texted me. Is this your parents' house? Under the message was a screenshot from a short-term rental site. At first, my mind refused to understand what I was looking at. The photo showed a small upstairs bedroom with pale curtains, a narrow brass bed, and afternoon light falling across the floorboards. Then I saw the corner by the window. The shelf was still there. I built it when I was 15. Out of cheap pine boards my father brought home from a renovation job. It was crooked in one place because I had measured wrong and cried from embarrassment. Victor had not laughed. He had put the pencil back in my hand and said, "Again, Irina. Wood forgives more than people do." I remembered the smell of sawdust. I remembered his rough hand guiding mine over the sandpaper. I remembered believing that if you built something with someone, a part of them stayed in it. Now the listing called it Quiet Garden Room Recently Refreshed. $76 a night. My name was gone from the door. The small ceramic plate painted with blue flowers, the one that used to say Irina in my mother's careful handwriting, had been replaced by a white wooden sign that read Guest Room. On the bed sat a pillow embroidered with Welcome Home, which felt almost crueler than if it had said nothing at all. I opened the full listing. Galina had written the description herself. I knew her phrasing. Comfortable stay in a warm family home. Peaceful neighborhood, perfect for visiting relatives or medical appointments nearby. Medical appointments. Even the room I had slept in as a child had been folded into someone else's care plan. Pavel stood behind me while I scrolled through the photos. He did not touch the phone. He only said, very quietly, "She didn't erase you because she hates you." I kept staring at the shelf. She erased me because I stopped producing. He did not answer. He did not need to. That was the morning I understood. My mother had not turned my room into a rental. She had converted vacancy into income. I did not tell Nina what the listing meant to me. I thanked her, saved the screenshot, and spent the rest of the day moving through my house as if every room had become slightly unfamiliar. Annika asked why I kept looking at the wall instead of my coffee. Misha drove a toy ambulance across the kitchen floor and announced that someone needed help. I almost laughed at the timing. In my family, someone always needed help. It was just never supposed to be me. 2 days later, Marina's message came while I was sitting in the parking lot outside Annika's dance class. It began with my childhood nickname. Ira, please don't take this the wrong way. There are sentences that announce their injury before they deliver it. I sat there with the engine off, the late afternoon sun burning through the windshield, and read the rest. Mom and I talked, and with everything happening with your company, we think the wedding might be too much pressure right now. Also, people are going to bring gifts, and I don't want you to feel awkward if you can't. Maybe it's better if you sit this one out. I hope you understand. I read it once like a sister. Then I read it again, like a stranger. For 5 months, I had been the invisible spine of Marina's wedding. I negotiated the catering minimum when the guest count changed. I caught the clause that would have charged her for 74 meals even if 30 people canceled. I found a different cellist when the first one doubled his rate. I called a parking consultant from one of my care facility contracts because Roman's venue had only 36 legal spaces, and his family wanted a full evening reception. I had handled the things that would never appear in photographs. And now I was too financially embarrassing to sit in one of the chairs I helped make possible. I looked at the invitation on my dashboard. I had taken it with me that morning because I planned to stop by the craft store and match ribbon colors for Marina's favor boxes. Cream paper, raised gold lettering, my name written carefully on the envelope. Mrs. Irina Orlova and family. For the first time, the word family looked decorative. I did not cry in the parking lot. Not then. I stared at the message until the screen dimmed, then brightened again when my thumb touched it. My first instinct was still to comfort her. To say, "It's okay. I understand. Don't worry about me. Enjoy your day." That instinct frightened me more than the message did, because some part of me still believed my job was to make their cruelty convenient for them. So I typed only one sentence. "I understand exactly what you are saying." Then I turned off my phone, walked into the dance studio, and watched my daughter twirl across the floor as if love had never once required a receipt. I left my phone off until after dinner. For 3 hours, the house was almost peaceful. Anika practiced her dance steps in socks on the living room rug. Misha built a hospital out of blocks and lined up his toy ambulances in front of it with the seriousness of a man managing an actual emergency department. Pavel cooked buckwheat with mushrooms because when he was worried, he made food from childhood and pretended it was casual. When I finally turned my phone back on, I expected Marina to have sent another message. Maybe an apology. Maybe a softer version of the same rejection. Instead, there was a text from Alexei Voronin. Alexei was my mother's cousin's son, the kind of relative you saw at funerals, christenings, and New Year's parties where someone always brought smoked fish and someone always argued about politics by dessert. We were not close, but he had always been kind in a distant, embarrassed way. His message said, "I don't think they meant for you not to see this, but you should." Below it were 4 screenshots from a group chat called Sokolov Family Updates. I stared at the name first. Not the messages. The name, Sokolov Family Updates. The chat had existed for more than 2 years. There were birthday photos, holiday plans, grocery lists for Easter, notes about my father's blood pressure medication, reminders about Marina's bridal shower, even a discussion about which restaurant to choose for Galina's 66th birthday. My name was not in the participant list. I had been managing my family's emergencies from the outside, while they held the family itself somewhere else. Then I read the recent messages. Galina. Irina's company situation is worse than expected. She probably cannot contribute anymore. Contribute. Not recover. Not cope. Not survive. Contribute. Marina. Wait. So who is dealing with the vendors now? I still need the lighting contract checked. A minute later, my father wrote, "Maybe give her some space." That was Victor's entire contribution. No outrage. No question. No. Is my daughter okay? Just space. A word people use when they want distance to sound generous. The final screenshot was from that morning. Galina had written, "We should not pressure her, but we need dependable people around the wedding, not more problems." I set the phone on the table and looked at Pavel. "They are replacing me," I said. He read the screenshot slowly, his mouth tightening at each line. "No," he said. "They are using you until they find your replacement." That sentence landed harder than Marina's text. Because it was true. My family had not removed me, because I was no longer loved. They had kept me on call until the next provider was secured. The screenshots changed the air in my house. For the next day, I moved carefully, as if one wrong motion might crack something open. I packed lunches, signed Annika's school form, found Misha's missing red sock, answered 2 work emails from the transition team at Sokolova Care Logistics, and did not answer a single message from my mother. By evening, the silence from me had become its own event. Galina called twice. Marina sent a question mark. Victor sent nothing. On the 9th day, I drove to my parents' house to pick up a box of winter clothes Annika had outgrown. My mother had been keeping it in their basement because, according to her, young families never have enough storage. It sounded generous until you understood that every object left in her house gave her one more reason to summon you back. No one was home. Galina was at a church committee meeting. Victor was helping someone from the old neighborhood repair a fuse box. I used the key I had carried since college and stepped into the hallway that still smelled of lemon polish, boiled potatoes, and the old wool coats my mother refused to throw away. The box was not in the basement. It was in my old closet, inside the room now called guest room. I stood there longer than I should have. The bedspread was new. The shelf I built was dusted and staged, with 2 travel books and a glass candle. My childhood had become decor. When I carried the box downstairs, I noticed the drawer of my mother's small writing desk was half open. I would like to say I did not look, but by then, privacy felt like a courtesy my family had stopped earning. A folder sat on top of the papers inside. Household balance. The label was printed, not handwritten. That made it worse. This was not a scattered note made in anger. This was a system. Inside were pages divided into columns. Name, contribution, received, current standing, notes. My name appeared on the second page. Irina Orlova. Insurance appeals, medical scheduling, property tax correction, emergency loans, vendor review, family translation, elder care coordination. Received, holiday meals, birthday gifts, child care assistance twice. Current standing. Overextended, but useful. I read that phrase until it stopped looking like English. Marina's line said, social presence, family visibility, event planning, community warmth. Current standing, socially valuable. My father's line said, maintenance, transportation, stabilizing presence when directed. Current standing, passive but reliable. I put the page down on the desk with both hands because my fingers had started to shake. My mother had not failed to love us equally. She had measured us differently. I photographed every page. Not because I wanted to expose her that night. not because I had already decided what to do. I photographed them because some truths are too heavy to carry without proof. If I left that house with only my memory, I knew what would happen. By morning, I would soften it. By the next week, I would wonder whether I had misunderstood. By the next family holiday, someone would say, "Your mother only writes things down because she worries." And I would almost believe them. So I took pictures. Then I put the folder back exactly where I found it, closed the drawer, carried Anika's box to my car, and drove home under the speed limit, with both hands locked around the steering wheel. Pavel was in the kitchen when I arrived. He did not ask why I looked pale. He took the box from me, set it by the stairs, and waited while I opened my phone. The photos passed between us in silence. When he reached the line that said overextended but useful, his face changed in a way I had only seen once before, years ago, when a hospital administrator tried to blame a nurse for a staffing failure that was not hers. Pavel could tolerate mistakes. He had no patience for systems that consumed people and called it order. "She made a chart," he said. "No," I said. "She made a diagnosis." That was what it felt like. Not a mother taking notes, a mother deciding what each of us was for. I called Yelena Morozova before I could lose my nerve. She had handled the sale of the company, the transfer agreements, the non-compete language, the signatures that turned 12 years of my life into a number large enough to frighten me. Her voice was calm when she answered, professional but warm. "Irina," she said, "is everything all right?" I looked at Pavel, then at the dark window over the sink, where my reflection looked older than it had that morning. "No," I said, "but I want it to become all right." I told her I needed trusts created for Annika and Misha, $420,000 each. Education, medical care, first home, emergency protection, independent trustee, no family access, no sentimental exceptions. Then I told her I wanted 3 transfers prepared, $37,000 to Galina, $37,000 to Victor, $37,000 to Marina. Yelena paused. "Is this a gift?" I looked down at my mother's spreadsheet glowing on my phone. "No," I said. "It's the final payment for 12 years of unpaid labor." That night, I wrote the memo line myself. "For the years you counted me, not loved me." I did not send the transfers that night. There are decisions you make in pain, and there are decisions you make after pain has had time to become clarity. I had spent too many years being accused of overreacting to give them that doorway now. So I slept badly, woke before dawn, showered, and dressed like I was going into a meeting that mattered. Navy blazer, white blouse, hair pinned back, the same small silver earrings I had worn when I signed the sale documents. At 6:18 inches the morning, I sat alone at the kitchen table while the house was still quiet. Pavel was upstairs with the children. The coffee machine clicked softly behind me. Outside, the streetlights were fading into a gray New Jersey morning. I opened the banking app. Galina Sokolova 37 Viktor Sokolov 37 0 Marina Belova 36 3 names, 3 amounts, 3 endings. In the memo line, I pasted the same words each time. "For the years you counted me, not loved me." My thumb hovered over the first button longer than I expected. Not because I regretted it, but because some part of me still understood the size of what I was closing. Once I sent the money, I was no longer waiting for them to become kinder. I was no longer auditioning for a place in my own family. I pressed send. Then again. Then again. By 7:03, my mother called. I watched her name fill the screen and let it ring. A minute later, Marina texted, "What is this? Are you trying to make me feel guilty before my wedding?" At 7:41, my father wrote only one sentence. "Ira, please tell me what happened." That was the closest any of them had come to asking a real question. At 8:10, I opened a group message and typed slowly. Not angrily, not dramatically, like I was closing a file. The sale of Sokolova Care Logistics did not fail. It closed 11 days ago for $11.8 million. I told you it collapsed because Pavel asked me to see what my family would do if they believed I had nothing left to offer. In 11 days, Mom rented out my childhood room. Marina removed me from her wedding because I could not bring an appropriate gift. Dad stopped answering my calls. All of you discussed my usefulness in a group chat I was not part of. Mom? I found the household balance folder. I stopped there for a moment. Then I finished. The money is real. Consider it severance. I am no longer available for unpaid work, emotional management, crisis repair, or family appearances. Any further communication should go through Yelena Morozova. I read it once, then I sent it, placed my phone face down, and listened to my children waking upstairs. Please subscribe to support the channel. I bet you're watching this video right now while lying down with your legs crossed, right? If that's true, type 3. If not, type 4. Let's see whether I got it right. Alright, enough talking, let's begin the story. The first deposit notification came before lunch. Galina accepted the transfer at 10:26 a.m. I was standing in the laundry room, folding Misha's dinosaur pajamas, when the alert appeared on my phone. For a second, I simply looked at it. My mother had called me cruel, unstable, and disrespectful in 3 separate voicemails before breakfast, but she still accepted $37,000 before the towels finished drying. Marina accepted hers at 12:14. Her text came 7 minutes later. I cannot believe you would do this during my wedding week. You always have to make things about yourself. I read it while spreading peanut butter on bread for Misha's lunch. It was strange how ordinary the day remained. Bread still tore if you pressed the knife too hard. The dryer still buzzed. A child still needed socks. My family was falling apart on my phone, and my kitchen still smelled like toast. Victor accepted his transfer at 2:03. He did not text right away. That hurt more than I expected. With my mother, I knew the money would become ammunition. With Marina, I knew it would become evidence that I had embarrassed her. But with my father, some foolish part of me had imagined he might send it back. Not because he was stronger than the others, but because I still remembered him kneeling beside me when I was 15, teaching me how to sand the edge of a crooked shelf until it looked intentional. At 3:19, he finally wrote, "Can we please talk when your mother calms down? Not when you are ready. Not I am sorry. Not I should have called. When your mother calms down." Even now, I was not his daughter first. I was a situation to be handled after Galina's weather changed. By evening, Alexei sent one last screenshot from the family chat. My mother had written that I had planned a public humiliation. Marina said Pavel must have turned me against them. Roman, who had not spoken to me once during the entire wedding planning process, wrote, "This is not normal behavior." No one mentioned keeping the money. Later that night, Galina posted on Facebook, "Some wounds come from the children you gave everything to. A mother's heart carries what others will never understand." There were hearts under it, praying hands, comments from women who knew her from church, calling her strong, selfless, misunderstood. I sat in bed beside Pavel and looked at the glowing screen until the words blurred. "She got $37,000 and sympathy in the same day," I said. Pavel took the phone from my hand and set it face down on the blanket. "No," he said quietly. "She got a receipt. The sympathy is just packaging." The next morning, Marina's wedding photos began appearing online. The lighting was beautiful. The flowers were exactly the colors I had approved. The seating flow worked because I had fixed it. Everything I had touched was there. Except me. I met Yelena the following Tuesday in her office overlooking a row of bare maple trees. It was the same office where I had signed away Sokolova Care Logistics and pretended my hands were not shaking. Back then, the papers had been about ownership, valuation, transition clauses. This time, they were about something more difficult to measure: distance. Yelena had prepared 3 certified letters. They were not emotional. That was why I trusted them. They did not accuse my mother of being heartless, or my sister of being selfish, or my father of being weak. They stated facts, dates, transfers, screenshots, the existence of the group chat, the wording from the household balance folder, the request that no one contact me, Pavel, Anika, or Misha directly. All communication goes through this office, Yelena said, tapping the page with one polished fingernail. If they come to your home, you do not negotiate at the door. You call me. It sounded severe. It also sounded like oxygen. For most of my life, my boundaries had been treated like suggestions written in pencil. Galina crossed them with urgency. Marina crossed them with helplessness. Victor crossed them by pretending not to see them at all. Having those lines printed on legal paper felt strange, almost impolite, but I kept reminding myself that locked doors are not acts of cruelty. Sometimes they are the only way a house stays safe. After we reviewed the letters, Yelena slid another folder toward me. The trusts are ready. Anika Orlova, $420,000. Misha Orlov, $420,000. Education, medical care, first home, emergencies, managed by an independent trustee, protected from relatives who might one day arrive with soft voices and old claims about family duty. I signed each page slowly. My children would not grow up as future resources. They would not be emergency contacts for adults who refused to manage themselves. They would not learn that love came with an invoice hidden inside it. Then came the final document. The Human Balance Fund, $18,000 a year for students entering care coordination, nursing administration, elder support, or community health management. Students who came from families where they had been the translator, the scheduler, the fixer, the unpaid adult in the room before they were old enough to understand what had been taken from them. Yelena looked up from the document. You chose the name on purpose. Yes, I said. My mother had created a balance sheet to decide what her children were worth. I was creating one that did the opposite. No repayment clause, no emotional debt, no column for gratitude, just help, given cleanly. Near the end of the appointment, Yelena checked her notes and said, "Your father called yesterday." My pen stopped moving. He asked what doing the work would mean. I looked at her. I gave him Dr. Vera Antonova's number, she said. That is all. For a moment, I felt the old door inside me open an inch. Then I closed it gently. Not locked forever, just closed. A first step was not a bridge, but it was the first thing Victor had done without asking Galina where to stand. 5 months later, the listing disappeared. Nina was the one who noticed, because I had stopped checking. She sent me a message on a Thursday morning, while I was sitting on the living room floor with Misha, helping him tape cardboard ramps to the side of a shoebox hospital. Anika was drawing windows on the front with a purple marker, very carefully, because she said sick people needed to see the sky. Your old room is gone from the rental site, Nina wrote. I read the message and felt almost nothing at first. Not triumph, not sadness, just a quiet space where an old ache had been. Later, I learned the room had collected 23 reviews before Galina removed it. 23 strangers had slept where I used to dream about leaving, and somehow, I had finally done it. My mother never apologized. She never mentioned the household balance folder. She returned the transfer 3 months after accepting it, with a short note sent through Yelena's office. I never needed your money, but she did not return what she earned from the room. That felt like Galina in its purest form, pride arranged neatly around profit. Marina went silent after her honeymoon. She unfollowed me online, which was probably the cleanest conversation we ever had. I heard through Alexei that she told people I had changed after becoming rich. Maybe that was easier than saying I had changed after being measured. Victor kept seeing Dr. Vera Antonova. He did not call me. He did not send messages through relatives. Once, Yelena told me he had asked whether respecting a boundary counted, if no one praised you for it. I cried after hearing that. Not because it fixed anything, but because it sounded like my father beginning to understand the shape of a door. My own life became smaller and better. I consulted 3 days a week. I took Anika to dance on Tuesdays. I let Misha believe every ambulance needed a parking garage. Pavel made soup when it rained, and stopped asking if I was okay in ways that required an immediate answer. He simply stayed close enough for me to tell the truth when I was ready. The Human Balance Fund chose its first recipient in May, a 21-year-old nursing administration student from Ohio who had been managing her grandmother's appointments since she was 13. In her application, she wrote, "I want to help people without becoming the only person everyone uses." I printed that sentence and kept it in my desk drawer. I used to think family was something you were born into and had to survive. Now I think family is also something you build, room by room, rule by rule, until the people inside no longer have to earn the right to stay. My children will never have a balance column beside their names. Not in my house. Sometimes the hardest truth about family is that love and usefulness can look almost the same from the outside. A phone call, a favor, a request, a crisis, a responsibility when they come from the people who raised us, we often mistake them for connection. We tell ourselves, they need me, so they must love me. But being needed is not the same as being cherished. Irina's story reminds us that a family should never make you audition for belonging. You should not have to solve every problem, pay every debt, organize every event, or carry everyone's emotional weight just to keep your seat at the table. Real love does not disappear when your money is gone. Real love does not measure your value by what you can provide. Real love asks, "Are you okay?" before it asks, "Can you handle this?" And yet this story is not only about betrayal, it is also about recovery. Irina did not become cruel. She became clear. She stopped begging people to see her and started building a life where she was already seen. That is what healing often looks like, not revenge, not noise, not proving everyone wrong, but quietly refusing to keep living inside a system that keeps shrinking you. Some people will only notice your worth when you stop giving it away for free. Let them notice from a distance. The deepest lesson is this: you are not a resource, you are not a backup plan, you are not the family fixer. You are a person, and love that requires you to disappear is not love worth keeping. Have you ever felt like your family valued what you did more than who you were? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story touched you, please hit like, subscribe, and stay with us for more stories that speak to the quiet battles people survive every day.